Congressman Horsford, it's so great to have you in person, and thank you for hosting us in your offices. We really appreciate it.
It's great to be on. Thank you for having me. It's the start of a new year, so we're looking forward to crushing this virus so that we can all be back in person for everything.
For sure. And the main point of our conversation here is talking a little bit about the rural areas, and let's talk about the pandemic. Of course, throughout the pandemic, you have conducted a lot of town halls. You've done a lot of listening sessions yourself within your district. And for context, your district really is North Las Vegas and above, all the way almost to Carson City in the west, beyond the Great Basin National Park in the east, a huge swath of rural area. What are you hearing?
Well, you're right. My district covers currently 52,000 square miles. It's half the state of Nevada geographically. North Las Vegas and Las Vegas here in Clark County, and then 6 other counties throughout rural Nevada. And no community is the same, particularly rural community. There's some that are a little bit more frontier even in the fact that they don't have a lot of the basic infrastructure and necessities. And so whether it's working in Nye County to help bring a full-service hospital to Tonopah, which is in the center of our state. They've been without a hospital since 2015. We've been successful in getting a $2 million appropriation in the appropriations process to help get that hospital reopen, to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to bring broadband infrastructure to Lincoln and White Pine counties. I was just talking to a number of the mayors and county commissioners from the rural areas, and every one of them talked to me about what this Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act will mean to them and how they plan to use the funding to meet the needs of the residents in those counties.
And you're speaking of 2 of the funding streams that we're seeing here. And I wanted to come back to the healthcare. You mentioned the hospital too. Something we've covered on the show a lot too is just the gaps that we are seeing, the challenges that we see in rural areas related to healthcare. As you mentioned, hospitals being one of them, just being viable and being able to keep their doors open is important. Lack of professionals is another big gap. And then access to even the smallest of community-based healthcare centers are also challenges. On the other side, we've got CARES Act money that has come in. Billions of dollars have come in there. We have our American Rescue Plan Act money, $6.7 billion the state is getting. Municipalities are getting part of that money as well. And now, as you mentioned, the infrastructure bill as well, law, I should say, that is now in place. How is some of this money going to be used to specifically close some of these healthcare gaps?
Yeah. So it is one of the most important things that we can accomplish. So when we talk about equity in the implementation of these policies, what we're saying is areas that have been historically underserved, even before the pandemic, and that were disproportionately affected during the pandemic. And we have to be very intentional about how we ensure that the services, whether it's in healthcare or in other areas, receive those benefits. And there's a lot of intersections to these issues. So you can't really address healthcare in rural Nevada without addressing broadband, because a lot of it is about access to healthcare through telemedicine. When you have a healthcare shortage of workers in rural Nevada, it's about affordability of getting people with the healthcare certifications or degrees out into rural or frontier communities. Maybe through loan forgiveness programs or other tax credits that they can receive in order to open a healthcare service in a rural community. And it's also about connecting the other institutions, whether it's education, the state colleges or community colleges, to that effort as well. So it's a lot of intersectionality to serve the rural community needs. And it's really important for me that my rural constituents understand that I'm advocating for them too. Whether they supported me or not, it's my job to represent every corner of my district. And a big part of that is listening to what it is they're telling me in my office we need to do for them. And the biggest issues that we've heard are healthcare, housing, broadband access, and of course, helping to crush this virus and get our economy back on track.
Let's talk about housing specifically there. That is something that when we've gone out and done some of our own listening, has been a major issue. We're featuring Laughlin on this show, and Laughlin, that was one of their biggest concerns, in being able to get workers into Laughlin from other areas. A city like Mesquite deals with similar things there because you have a housing crunch there, and then you have a rather big city in southern Utah, St. George, too, that might be competing for workers as well. Again, on the flip side, we have millions of dollars potentially coming in for housing. I want to bring attention to the Build Back Better Act that is going through Congress right now, $175 billion towards affordable housing there. And then American Rescue Plan Act money, again, the state is making the decisions, but all roads seem to be that a lot of money is going to be brought towards affordable housing. Is the solution just supply here?
Well, it is a combination of a couple things. And when I talk about housing, I'm talking about housing at every rung. So from those who are homeless today to those who are housing insecure, meaning one check away from being homeless, to those who are trying to start their or buy their first home and to build wealth, to those who are trying to upgrade, a growing family that's trying to move from their first home to a larger home. And we need strategies and solutions for everybody. The other thing is, it's not only about the money, as important as it has been for me and other members of the delegation to deliver money to Nevada. It's about the effective execution of those resources into the communities that need it the most. So, for example, here in North Las Vegas, we have a housing shortage. We need more access to land and a partnership, particularly with nonprofit housing developers, to bring affordable housing. Just in the last year, rental rates in Clark County have gone up 23%. So for a lot of my seniors that are on fixed incomes, Social Security or other single forms of income, they can afford rents going up $50, $100, $200. And it really is a barrier for many of them. And so we're really looking at this from a holistic standpoint. I want to commend the Nevada Housing Coalition. They actually have spearheaded a statewide strategic plan, again, dealing with everything from homelessness to first-time home buyers to families in between. Yeah. And we need strategies for everybody.
And I apologize to keep coming back to the money because you're right. A congressman's job doesn't begin and end with the money going into law. But there is.
I am proud about bringing the money home, though, too. That's a big part of it.
But in addition to that, what I wanted to get to is that it's not just about securing the money. There's accountability that this money is going to the right places. And as you mentioned, then when you're dealing with coalitions and nonprofit organizations, it's very important to be working closely with them. How does your office specifically then work with those organizations to make sure that the money is being spent the right way?
Well, several ways. One of the town halls that we did was actually a housing town hall with the coalition members from housing, right? So it's not me coming down on high from Congress saying, here's how we need to do this. It's the coalition members and all the community partners meeting with me and the larger community to talk about how these funds and the resources that are in place can help address everything from homelessness to housing insecurity, to workforce housing, to first-time home buyer. We've got a lot of young people who have student debt. That is a barrier to them being able to afford their first-time home, and that's why I'm trying to cancel student debt for at least $10,000 for students, particularly in certain income categories, so that they don't have that financial obligation and strain that prevents them from entering the housing market. A number of our veterans in this community, and I have a higher percentage because of Nellis and Creech being located in my district, of veterans and unfortunately homeless veterans. And so making sure that we have services from them, for them, that meet all of their needs, not just housing, but mental health, job training, education, food. You can't just, again, approach it in a singular way. When you're working with populations, you need to make sure that those wraparound services are there as well. And that's what the experts have told me. That's not something that I know on my own.
I want to switch gears. We got about a minute left. Of course, this week, some of the big news is the passing of Senator Harry Reid. And I wanted to get your reflections on that as well. Both his legacy and what the senator meant to you personally.
Well, Senator Reid was, is, and always will be to me a mentor, a friend. He was a bigger than life, elected leader and someone who I respected greatly. He's an honorable man who cared deeply about his family and our state and this country. And I remember before I ever got elected to anything, watching him advance in his career, and he was a fighter and a champion to the very end. Because of Senator Reid, 31 million Americans have access to health care today through the Affordable Care Act that would not have had it without his leadership of the United States Senate at the time. There are people who have benefited from civil rights to immigrant rights to labor rights because of his leadership on those important issues. And the fact that Nevada has avoided becoming the nation's nuclear waste dumping ground is in large part because of Senator Reid's leadership in ensuring that people's waste elsewhere didn't become Nevada's problem and storage problem. So I'm going to miss him dearly. I obviously extend my condolences to his family, his wife Landra, all of his children and grandchildren, and everyone who loved him. I've gotten calls and texts from people who worked for Senator Reid. They were always referred to as the Reid machine or Team Reid, and it's because they learned so much from him and were provided a lot of opportunities, and we're all going to carry on his legacy.
Congressman, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.